I'd like to call in session the steering committee for November 1st, 2021. Welcome, everybody. We have a pretty large agenda, so let's get started on it. First thing I want to do, which is what I'll do every single meeting, is I start off with the problem that we're facing is the opioid epidemic. And each month I tell and use the privilege of being a steering chairman to say these numbers and to show you how concerning it should be. Last year we had 120 overdose deaths and 46 suicides. As of today, we have 128 overdose deaths, 38 suicides, and we have 2 months to go. So you can see that we're looking at another 15 to 20% rise. I want to also remind y'all that the mayor and Commissioner Serrano had asked that we light up the courthouse in red lights for Addiction Awareness Month, and that's why you see the red lights. And I want to thank them personally for doing that. So thank you, Commissioner and Mayor. All right, let's move on. First thing I want to do is approve minutes from last meeting. I call on Vice Chair Pettis Reed.
Mr. Chairman, I have read through these minutes. I have not found anything incorrect, and I move for their approval.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second, Commissioner Johnson. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Move on. I'd like to announce 4 Agriculture Advisory Board vacancies. The 4 positions must be filled by 1 farm woman, 1 farmer, and 2 county commissioners. Get in your applications and we'll address this and fill it next month in next month's meeting in December. I'd also like to announce 1 vacancy on the Ccrc board term to expire December of 2024. I would also like to announce a vacancy on the PBA, and we will applications in for that, and we'll address that on December meeting. I'm going to move the school board back to the end, and I want to go and fill 2 vacancies for the PBA. I know it says 3 on your agenda, but it's 2 for the PBA to complete the terms of Jimmy Davis and Kayla Walker. I have 2 applicants for 2 positions. They are Caleb Spearing and Gary Wisnowski. And we have, those are the 2. You have 2 more on there, but their applications got in late, and they will be sent over to next month to fill the vacancy that we have, we just announced. So if there's any questions or anything, we have these 2 applicants, and that's all we have for two positions. Seeing none, is there a motion to pass these 2 to the commission, full commission? Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make a motion that we recommend Mr. Spearing and Mr. Wisnowski for the full commission meeting.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Cush. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Let's move on. Next is we want to discussion regarding judicial commissioner appointment process. I have asked Jacob Flatt to come and address us, and Judge Ashaw, would you like to come up? She wants to be available for questions as well. One of the things that we want to do is some of the commissioners had approached me that we need to get an idea of the process that goes into appointing a judicial appointee. So I want to address that right now, and Mr. Flatt, go ahead. Thank y'all both for coming. Go ahead.
So the judicial commissioner is like any other county employee. That's how the process starts. Individuals apply through the county website. I'm responsible for reviewing the applications, and just to be clear on the front end, the recent publicity regarding the Hobgood case.
Excuse me, Mr. Flatt. Can you speak into the microphone?
Sorry. The recent publicity with the Hobgood case occurred prior to my taking over the position as a supervisor of the office. And so the way we consider the applications for judicial commissioner is I review them. I try to find somebody who is qualified or works in the criminal justice field, either could be ex-law enforcement, could be someone with aspirations to go to law school. And I review those. Once we make a decision on who we want to hire, They are recommended by all the judges. They have input in the process as well. And in fact, many times they will sit in with the interviews as we interview the applicants. So they have to recommend a commissioner for appointment. They will recommend them. They go through the mayor's office, and then ultimately the county commission will confirm the appointment, and they will take an oath of office. So that's how the process works.
Commissioners, we got any questions?
If I may say one more thing.
Go ahead.
There's three on the agenda for tonight. Darren Keller is the judicial commissioner that we have selected or recommending for appointment. The other two are commissioners that we have not personally interviewed or recommended for appointment. They are affiliated with the juvenile court.
Okay, let me go ahead and announce that since you brought their names up. Mr. Smith and Mr. Adams we are not considering them. They have withdrawn their names. So the only commissioner judicial that we are voting for tonight is Mr. Keller. Judge, would you like to say anything?
Well, just so everybody knows, those are two different offices. So Mr. Flatt, he is the one supervisor, he's the head judicial commissioner in charge. Of course, everybody knows he has his law degree. He practiced law for several years. Thanks to the commission for letting us hire somebody and keeping the pay up to where we can get a qualified person in there. And everybody that he has interviewed, or even he goes through all the applications. And honestly, we've been very fortunate to get college graduates now, criminal justice majors. We're trying to get some National School of Law, night law candidates in there because it's such a great learning environment for a student of law and for a criminal justice major. You've got MTSU right here. So he is up the bar, even though the qualifications in the statute are a high school degree. So when he came in, he has done fantastic. We don't get near the calls we used to get on whether we should charge this or not, because he's learned and he knows how to charge it, find probable cause. And so this is just for the judicial commissioners that are over at the sheriff's office. We don't oversee the juvenile court judicial commissioners. That's not what any county general sessions judge, that's your juvenile judge. So Judge Bennett, myself, and Judge McFarland just oversee Jake and his office, if y'all have any questions about that.
Judge, can you tell us what the duties are of a judicial?
And yeah, I don't mind telling you. So every officer who's going to have a charging instrument where they have to take a warrant out, they have to go before a judicial commissioner and swear to that warrant of a crime. So say it's a DUI, driving under the influence. If they arrest that person, then they'll go to the commissioner. They'll have to write down their probable cause. The commissioner reviews it, checks the statute, and makes sure that it qualifies and it has probable cause to arrest this person. The commissioner swears them in under oath. They sign it, the affidavit, and then it comes, once that warrant goes through the system, it comes up to the general sessions judges, and then we have either a hearing on that warrant, and it just goes from there. So they're the first ones to really see the case. And it can go from assault all the way to a first-degree murder.
Thank you, Judge. Is there any questions? Mr. Flatt, thank you. It was very informative. Thank you, Judge, as always.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
All right, gentlemen, we need to recommend Mr. Keller.
Make a motion to recommend Darren Keller to fulfill that empty slot.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second, Commissioner Rather. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Move on. I want to go to number 11, which is the fire code adoption. And I'd like to ask, I'm sorry, what was your name? Josh Sanders. And Chief, you want to come up? All right. And before you speak, Commissioners, on your iPad is the sections that he is wanting to add into our policy handbook. And go right ahead, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, and Commissioners. I just want to take a brief second to introduce myself for those of you I have not yet met. I'm Assistant Chief Joshua Sanders of the Rutherford County Fire Rescue Department. I was recently promoted by Chief Farley to serve as Rutherford County's first fire marshal back in July of this year. I previously served as a shift commander for the department after working my way up through the ranks of a firefighter. I've spent 20 years in the fire service, 16 of which have been dedicated to community risk reduction and fire prevention. A significant part of my job in Rutherford County is serving as the county's fire code official. As such, it is my statutory duty to ensure the safety of commercial buildings and businesses in Rutherford County through the review of building, life safety, and fire protection system plans, conducting code enforcement inspections, and managing other targeted risk reduction efforts to minimize the loss of life and property due to fire. As I've taken on this role, one of my tasks has been to assess the current code for areas of improvement. I'm here tonight to propose to you 2 adoptions to the county's adopted fire code, which is the International Fire Code, the 2018 edition. I've discovered 2 sections of the IFC that were excluded during our last adoption cycle in 2018. In the report before you, you'll see these 2 sections. The first one is International Fire Code Section 102.5. This section would, if adopted, would allow us to review and approve applicable requirements in the county as it pertains to large residential developments. These requirements that we would be reviewing and approving include address identification to facilitate rapid response, fire department apparatus access, which includes width of roadways, available turning templates and things like that. And then finally, the sufficient provision of water supplies in accordance with the county's fire code. The next section before you is an adoption for Section 105 of the fire code, which pertains to permits. The implementation of a permitting process would greatly increase the effectiveness of our code enforcement efforts that have existed since Chief Farley started those in 2013. Through the permitting process, the Fire Marshal's Office would be able to review the necessary construction documents and information that is necessary ahead of time to perform the prescribed inspections and determining the type of work that is being done in commercial buildings, any hazardous operations that are being performed, and to determine where any hazardous materials are being stored. This process will help us also keep that data and retain information on the type and number of fire protection systems, hazardous operations, and hazardous materials present in the county, specifically in commercial buildings. Through this program, our goal is ultimately to protect these businesses by preventing loss of revenue due to fire, and in turn, reduce the cost of insurance premiums. I've worked extensively with the Rutherford County Building Codes Director, Ms. Tanya Bell, and Director Doug DeMasi of Planning on this project. Both have emphasized their support of this program. These permits would not duplicate any processes done at the planning and codes level. Through the adopted fire code, our inspections associated with these permits will address commercial buildings only. And Director Bell is here also tonight to address any questions that you might have from a codes perspective, building codes perspective. In the report before you, you'll see a not so detailed or not so abbreviated description of the types of permits and the overall intent of the program. On page 10 of that report, you'll also see a proposed permit schedule, as well as an example of jurisdictions that are conducting such a process, and just to give you an idea of what's being done in fire departments throughout the state. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? None? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Let me take a real quick second. Sometimes in politics, you get carried away with yourself. And a lot of times, I don't tell people that they're doing a good job when they do. Chief, you're doing a great job. I just want to let you know that. Mr. Reed?
I'm going to stand up on this one because, as you say, these gentlemen do a great job. This was presented before Public Safety. It was discussed very, very much because this is something that hasn't been done within this county, here in Rutherford County. As you see there, you see the adoption of two important sections. 102.5, and 105. The thing is that this is already being done here in the city of Murfreesboro. And as commercial building continues to expand across this county, it's now coming out into the county areas. We now have our own fire marshal, as he has presented this tonight. He's very well qualified to do what he does. Chief Farley has always been at our Planning Commission meetings, been there to answer questions whenever we have construction questions and things of that type. And now our fire marshal is there also. He now attends those meetings to answer those questions as well. So as Rutherford County continues to grow, as we continue to have more commercial buildings and things of this happening out there, as we continue to have, as you go through this and look at the many different things that it does involve, I think that you'll see there it's important that we have somebody with the ability to know of these things and how to understand, to look at them, how to know how they should be properly installed and correctly work to keep the safety of those buildings, but not necessarily just those buildings, but the safety of our citizens and the protection of lives. So if it's proper, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve these two sections.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second, Commissioner Rather. I'm going to do a voice vote. Go ahead, Rachel.
Commissioner Cush? Yes. Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo? Yes. Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes?
Chairman Harris?
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, let's move on. Next on our list is, first of all, I want to go to litigation list. Gentlemen, you have the litigation list in front of you. Is there any questions? Seeing none, we'll move on to salary and benefit studies. I'm going to bring in our human resource director. Sonia, come on up, please, and address this, please. How are you?
Good evening. So in the Public Safety Department, in the Public Safety Committee, it was requested that I bring some salary information back to that committee and also to look at the potential for completing a salary survey amongst other agencies across the state, those that are comparable. After presenting to the Public Safety the couple of options that we had, looking at who does the surveys, who can get it in this short amount of time, because most of the time entities request these about a year out. Burris Thompson and Associates is an organization that the county has participated in their salary surveys pretty much ever since I've been here. We offer assistance to them, and in return they give us a copy of the overall results for the entity that they did the study for. So if we participate, we get something in return. However, the county, since I've been here, has not solicited them to do a survey based on our unique positions. So when I get the survey copy from other entities, it's based on their job titles and their responsibilities. So while it can be used as a comparison to give us guidance, it's not our jobs exactly. So at the request of the Public Safety Committee, I reached out to Burris and Thompson and to see what this would cost, and they sent me an estimate for a total salary survey of $22,675. What this would do is it would look at all of our positions, the number of people within those positions, their tenure, seniority, supervisory authority, all those different things based on whichever entities this body decides they want to be in comparison to. The county currently pays at the 50th percentile. If that was something the county wanted to change, to go from 50 to 75th, they'd need to know that, because all of their analysis would be based on what information we ask them for. They're going to provide what we ask them for. To see if that was in line, I had researched what other entities had paid from some other vendors across the country, and so I reached out to our contact with Mercer, because we are already a client of Mercer, to see what they would charge the county to do a salary survey, and they said it would be a minimum of $132,000. So $22,000 versus $132,000. The primary reason for that is Thompson Burris and Associates does a lot of surveys within the state of Tennessee already, so they're already compiling data. We in HR are currently participating in 3 of their surveys right now for other entities, and he said that they were of the group that we had listed as someone we may want to be compared to. They are conducting interviews and assessments for them as we speak. So with that, another question that's usually asked of me when we do a salary survey is, well, that's what they pay, but what are their benefits? So anticipating that might be a question that was asked, I inquired with Mr. Thompson what they would charge to do a benefits survey at the same time, to look at what they do for their pensions or their 401ks or sick leave, annual leave, those type things. And for another $2,250, they could do a benefit survey, which is a minimal cost for that additional information. So at the request of Public Safety, they voted for it to be brought back here. I am asking if this would be the wishes of this body before we move forward to budget and full commission. Yes, to budget and full commission.
Any questions? Just, I vaguely remember, but just try to remind me, did we not have a salary study 3 years ago?
So HR, myself, I have ladies in my office that reach out to the entities that we've been in comparison to. Some years back, the commission provided me with a list of entities they wanted us to be compared to, and their largest municipality within that. So, for example, currently what we've been comparing ourselves to is City of Murfreesboro, Williamson County, Franklin, Montgomery County, Clarksville, Wilson County, Lebanon, Montgomery County, Chattanooga, Knox County, Knoxville, and then on hard-to-find positions that we don't have that title, we may look at Metro or State of Tennessee. If it's something that we're doing that nobody else is doing, like when we started the pretrial release, other smaller entities were not doing that, and even some of the other entities. So we will look to see what they have in comparison to use for that. So I have been doing that ever since I got here, ever since I came to the county. After the first budget I went through, we started doing our analysis in that December, because some entities were doing their budget information in September and others were doing it in June, July, like us. So we would gather that information, look to see what the pay was, and we also did a benefit study several years ago when we were at, I believe it was Commissioner Stevens that requested that we do that several years ago. So it's done pretty much almost every year. I didn't do it last year because of COVID. Most places did not do one last year, so I did not do one last year. But we've been doing one. We just have not paid an outside company to look at that for us to make sure it's in line with what, with what we're doing. So it was requested that maybe we look at what an outside entity would come up with different from what I've been coming up with.
Okay. Commissioner Chair, Vice Chair, you want to say anything on this? It came through your committee.
You may be questioning, why. I know that's, I see that in your thoughts there when you ask that. You're thinking, why? And Commissioner Rather sits on that committee with us, too, so he may have something to say, too, to inject here. But the thing is, in all of our first responders and what we're doing with this information we're trying to find, it's a difficult time right now as far as keeping this personnel with us here in Rutherford County. I mean, that's just a known fact, and how we're trying to keep everybody here and keep all of our positions filled. With the ambulance service, I think every one of you know that we changed the shift times. And I can tell you this, I think at the last meeting, last week, we only had one position that was open, where we had as many as, 30, I think, at one time?
We had double digits. I can't remember the exact number.
That was gone, but now we only had one position, and I think they had that filled the other night. They thought they had that possibly filled. So we have seen in that, we're thinking outside the box on a lot of these things. Our fire and rescue, they're looking at possibly the same thing. They're going to try a test, I guess, for 6 months to see. They're going to try a different shift time, too, of how to do their shifts, and see if that works for them, too, to keep their employees there, too. Within the Sheriff's Department, you can't do that. You can't do that thing. So we're looking at that pay schedule. We want to see if there's something we can do, if there's something we're missing or whatever. And it was suggested by members of this committee right here that we go outside the box of what we're doing here and ask someone outside to look at what we're doing and see if there's something there to do these comparisons and give us that information too. So that's pretty much it, that we do this and try an outside vendor to tell us this.
Thank you. Commissioner Rather?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The city of Murfreesboro budgets $80,000 for salary studies. And I read that from a councilman, so I didn't make that up. We had the discussion not too long ago. As Commissioner Cush knows, he found me working at a place that blew his mind this past week, and it's happening all across the country. You can find people all day long that want a paycheck, but you cannot find people that want to work for what they get paid. It's happening everywhere. We see it on the news, we hear it on the news, we're experiencing that. I think Director Hudgens done a fantastic job. Chief Farley, we've got some really good people that do all they can, but I think we owe it to employees. Rather than lose them, we owe it to them to do all we can within reason. I get that. And we're not going to spend $250,000 on a study. But when the city budgets up to $80,000 and we're talking 25, we owe it to the employees to do that study. And I'm not discounting anything Sonia does. She's incredible. Her staff is incredible. I think we have to look outside, have somebody else looking inside, and see where we are, so we can be competitive in the employee marketplace. And that's just my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right. Can you answer me one question? What is our positions we have open as far as Sheriff's Department, EMS, Fire Department? Do we have a lot of positions open?
I think we have somewhere upwards of 40 positions at the Sheriff's Office that's open. Between detention officers, patrol officers, those are probably the primaries. I met with Michael Gregory from Paul's today. We were trying to come up with some creative solutions for staffing his department. He's having a real struggle. As far as those are animal control officers, those are kennel attendants, somebody who, we're trying to think where you're talking outside of the box. We are trying desperately to help Michael. He's used every tool in his toolbox, and we have sent, information in the past, we've sent to MTSU, those individuals who are going to school in the animal sciences. We have reached out to other universities. Rebecca has reached out to the Career Center. They have weekly career fairs. But if I'm remembering what Rebecca said today in our meeting with Michael, that the Career Center says it currently has 6,000 job postings, and they don't have enough applicants. And so
Amazing.
this is the reality of what we're looking at is the number of positions that we have. And the scary part is, yes, we've got to have the public safety, you've got to have the firefighters, the ambulances, the medics, the patrol officers, and those things. But then you've got to have the other people that keep those positions going as well. So when you look at, I would say the largest number based on the size of their departments is always going to be public safety. Public safety is probably, if I had to guess, 70% of the entire county population. So, you've got some 500 employees out at the sheriff's office, a couple of hundred at ambulance. So when you start looking at correctional work center, juvenile detention, sheriff's office, PAWS, all of those, you start seeing, we've got several positions open at the health department right now. As we all know, they're doing COVID testing, COVID vaccinations. So when you start looking at these number of positions that we have, and I'd like to say, well, I wouldn't like to say, I don't want to think that Rutherford County's in a worse place than other people. I would tell you that this is kind of the trend that I'm seeing when I look at the labor statistics, that people are hurting for employees. And it would be hopeful that something like this would happen. The thing that you have to think about when we approve a salary survey, I can bring you survey data all the time, but then it comes to the implementation. That's where it's going to be, and I can kind of anticipate what that's going to look like already, because I know kind of what that's going to look like. And so then that's where you've done a salary survey, and you have to ask what can we afford to do? So.
Well, first of all, thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. I do agree with this. I tell you what, before I ask for a motion, one of the things, or you want to speak? One of the things that I want to do, and I want to tell you while you're here, is that I think this committee needs, since we oversee HR, I would like for you to become part of the agenda and give reports. Okay. And that report would consist of what you just sit there and told us about openings and situations that we're doing to try to ratify this, because this is very, this is serious what you just brought up, especially Commissioner Reed knows that as well. So I'd like to request that you become part of the agenda. Are you okay with that?
Yes, sir. I used to give a report monthly.
Well, we're going to do that again. Commissioners, are everybody good with that? We're all good with that? Okay. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll just comment that I think it's a very good price compared to the $100,000. So if we can get a good study, which I believe in this firm that you've contacted, I think it'd be well worth it. Now's the time to go ahead and enact that before, because we're going to start budget. Departments will start putting their budgets together. You sent out a note today, so they'll start coming before me first, before it starts coming to the respective committees with their budgets, probably within the next, what is this, November? Probably 90 days. We'll start that process, so we need to move quickly on this, get it to budget this coming week, and then on to the full commission.
Go ahead.
I would, if this body does decide to move it forward, I would also need a recommendation of what entities you would like the comparison to, so that when we take it to budget, we'll know that already as well as from the recommendation, because they don't compare, we tell them who to compare us to. So we usually do the ones that are.
The only one, Mr. Chairman, I would have difficulty with would be Metro, because they're not accounting. It's, their salaries are much higher. You may think about Williamson County. Everybody we seem to lose to Williamson County, we probably need to compare to, but, the cost of living is so high, most people can't live in Williamson County. But I think Wilson, Dixon, Warren, Coffee, all of the surrounding counties, go to Chattanooga, go to Knoxville. but you need to give her some direction of who to,
When we start looking at the smaller counties like Warren, they're
too small?
they're too small. They're way too small. So
Montgomery, Sumner.
Sumner was one that they added to the list. We used to do surveys with Sumner, but they didn't always participate. But Sumner was one they had on their list. So I would recommend, if we're going to look at it, if you're going to remove Metro from our existing pool has our three largest. This is who he recommends. It's not the list. Three largest, and their three largest
Recommend
cities.
anybody other than what's on here?
We'd recommend we do Sumner. We're already doing Franklin, so it has Brentwood, so I wouldn't do Brentwood and Franklin in Williamson County. It has Gallatin. I would continue with City of Murfreesboro, obviously, because they're here. They're the largest in our county. And you could add Smyrna if you so chose, because that's somebody that we've used in a comparison before. The other was Hamilton and City of Chattanooga, because we're right on their skirts right there. Then Knoxville and Knox County and City of Knoxville. That would get the larger ones. And then Montgomery and Clarksville. We lose people to Wilson County and not as many to Lebanon. So one of the things I was going to recommend, while he didn't have it on the list, is that we might not do Lebanon, but we might do Mount Juliet, because they seem to be a little bit larger than
Mount Juliet's almost become a Brentwood, you know, and the price of properties.
I think we should keep Lebanon on there. I'm curious as to that. So here's what we have right now. We have Williamson, Wilson, we have Franklin, we have Gallatin, we have the City of Murfreesboro, City of Smyrna, City of Chattanooga, Hamilton County, City of Knoxville, Knox County, Maryville, is that right? Not Maryville.
Montgomery County.
Montgomery County and the City of Clarksville, City of Lebanon, Wilson County, and the City of Mount Juliet. Is there any more you want to add on that? If you can read it.
Only other one would be Sumner. You didn't have Sumner on the list.
All right. All right, gentlemen. The request for motion is that we send this and forward it on to Budget and Finance. They want Pacific counties and cities. They are as followed: Williamson County, Wilson County, City of Franklin, City of Gallatin, City of Murfreesboro, City of Smyrna, City of Chattanooga, Hamilton County, Knox County, City of Knoxville, Montgomery County, City of Clarksville, City of Lebanon, Wilson County, City of Mount Juliet, and Sumner County. Do I have a motion? Hold up. Go ahead, Commissioner Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a question. Do we have a limit on how many entities they will study for that price?
Yes, sir, I do. It is 12 to 18.
Okay, and then do we lose people to Chattanooga and Knoxville?
Well, we did have some paramedics and some EMTs that, yes, went up to Chattanooga. And I don't know if Knoxville, I can't remember, but we did Chattanooga.
Because I'm personally not as interested in what's going on there as I am right around us. It seems like we lose most of our people to counties that are right around us, and if we have to knock something out, I think Knox County or Knoxville would be the one to do. I'm just not particularly interested in what they're doing. I don't think it's apples to apples.
Do you have a specific county you'd like to see?
I think it's a good list, but if Knox County can be included with what we're paying, then I'm okay with keeping it, but I didn't know how many we could do.
Okay. That's 16, so
We could add 2 more if you
Can
wanted
add 2
2
more.
Is there anybody else you can consider? I've just tried to think, or if any of our public safety people
Did you
can
get
think of anybody.
Gallatin?
Say it again. Yes, sir, we did.
And Sunray.
And there's always
is
Hendersonville.
there any commissioners want to add to this list that I did not specifically set?
To do Hendersonville.
You could do Hendersonville if you want to add them.
Hendersonville will be fine.
That's in Sumner. Dixon's beginning to grow a little bit. And what about Murray?
Are you, I get confused, are you saying like Maury, like Columbia?
Columbia's pretty high.
They're on the list. I don't know that we lose a lot, but they're close proximity to us.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion to pass this to budget?
Chairman,
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Rather, go ahead.
I have a question. When we do a salary study, is that just salaries?
He'd like to speak on.
Does that include benefits, holidays, vacations, any fringe benefits, the whole 9 yards? Because the city budgeted a certain amount, but that amount was based on the scope of work. So what is the scope of what we're studying beyond salaries and benefits?
So the first number I gave you, the 22,000 and some change, was for the salaries. The other 2,250 was for benefits, and so they will look at, you know, all of our insurance benefits, our retirement, 401k, 457, annual day, sick leave, longevity, whatever we put in their bonus structure. If they're getting stipends, some of our positions are getting, not stipends, supplements. And they get supplements for example, I don't want to say which department because I don't want to misspeak. If Lisa Nolan was here, she could tell you. But I think a couple of our departments get supplements for different things based on their job duties. They get a supplement for that from the county. And some of the supplements are paid for by the state, so we wouldn't count that because that's not, you know, something the state provides. That's not something we provide. So.
You good? I have got a request from Director Hudgens to come up. He wants to let this committee know about the problems we're facing right now with his department and concerning this study. You recognize Mr. Hudgens?
Thank you. I know the pay studies that Sonia have done in the past are really, really good. Just me personally, I agree with Knox County and even Memphis and all that for the simple fact is the population compared to ours, we're very close to that. The surrounding counties of us that we have lost to have less population and they're paying more. And what we've done at the ambulance service is we're very fortunate because I only have 1 or 2 openings. And honestly, I expect to fill those within the next week. But the surrounding counties from us have a lot of openings. And I'm hearing from other directors that they're fixing to do a huge pay increase, and I'm afraid that we're going to get right back in the shape that I was in earlier. And they're going to be doing a lot less calls. You know, we ran almost 4,000 calls last month. And it's all due to growth. Rutherford County is better than being at a 50% percentile, and I know that. And so whether Sonia does the study or this other company does, I'm really hoping that it will go through and do a thorough and extensive study on what we can really compare ourselves to in size to other counties. So that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. All right, do I have a motion to send this to Budget and Finance? Commissioner Wright, do I have a second? Commissioner Reed? All right, this will be a roll count, roll vote.
Commissioner Stevens?
Yes.
Commissioner McAdoo? Commissioner Rather?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Cush?
Yes.
Chairman Harris?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, time for the main event. We have to appoint a school board member to take the place of Lisa Moore. We have 4 applicants. They are Tim Holden, Christopher Whitaker, Ross Bradley, and Dratrone Marable. If I messed that up, I apologize. What I want to do is we're voting for one. I want to hear from each applicant. Please keep in mind that the questions that we ask, each one of you, and start off, that question will go ahead and you need to be ready to answer that question for all of them. So instead of probably repeating it, I will remind you of the question, but whatever questions we ask for one, we ask for all 4. I'm going to go in alphabetical order. So Mr. Bradley, you are up first.
I'm Ross Bradley. Do I answer questions or do I make a
First,
presentation
tell us about
first?
yourself, tell us
Sure thing.
why, and then we'll set it up for questions.
Yeah. Commissioners, thanks for having me today. It's a pleasure to be before you. School board is such a important role, as you all know. I was looking back at your budget the other day, and as you're probably very aware, it's 64% of your budget that you approve every year. I have also the pleasure of serving on Middle Tennessee Electric's board. I took that position by the recommendation of the City of Murfreesboro City Council, where I served on MED's board for 6 years prior to the acquisition last year. Why I mention that, and what's interesting about that, is we just had our board meeting last Wednesday, and as I was looking at our growth numbers, when I measure the same period last year to this year, we have added 10,000 meters to our coverage area. Okay. Now let's talk about let's talk about our coverage area first. Our coverage area goes from Williamson County to Rutherford County to Wilson County and parts of Cannon County. Okay. So we're not talking all of Rutherford. However, Rutherford County is the largest county that Middle Tennessee Electric serves. And so why is that important? That's important because we've got a lot of growth, right? So 10,000 meters doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to have 10,000 people. Some of those may be businesses, right? But it also doesn't mean that 1 meter equals 1 person. So 1 meter may be 4 people. So I say it to say we all know that we have tremendous growth and that we're continuing to be faced with budget challenges that we have to look at. And so I think the monetary aspect is a very critical component. One of the things in my background in my own personal life is I'm a real estate developer. And I think it is absolutely important to have somebody that's on this board that understands budgets and that understands construction, because every year for the foreseeable future until we stop growing, we're probably going to be looking at either school improvements, expanding buildings, or adding more buildings, right? So I think that's a critical component to have on our board, is understanding what the physical responsibility of that to our budgets are, okay? So we're just talking dollars and cents right now. I know there's a lot of political issues that come with school boards. You know, you hear things like critical race theory, you hear things about COVID and mask mandates. I think those are all important issues that we have to address. Let's talk about critical race theory for a second. I know that was a concern from some of you. What do you think about critical race theory? Well, let me first say, I think racism has no place in our schools. No place whatsoever. But I also believe that critical race theory has no place in our schools either. I think this creates nothing but division. I think it's a political issue that we have pushed down the road, and it really has divided a lot of people. And I think we have to come together, and there's nothing more important than how we educate our kids, and that we're responsible in doing it. I see the numbers. We're almost 50,000 students. That's a huge number of students that we have influence over, right? And we're continuing to grow. And so how we do that is so important. Somebody had asked about vouchers. Our family in 2011, I grew up in East Tennessee in a little town called Maryville. Some of y'all have probably heard Maryville. I heard Maryville was mentioned possibly as a city to look at part of the salary study. That's in Blount County. And in 2011, we had looked at starting a charter school. And somebody said, well, we don't like charter schools. They're not very friendly. I don't think I could get comfortable supporting a board member that supports charter schools because they're not always great for the teachers and for the teacher unions. And they said, what's your position on that? And I said, my position on that is this. If you, at that time, when we made the decision in 2011 to pursue a charter school, we had 7 schools in that county that were on the state improvement list, okay? I think if you've got 7 schools on the state improvement list, you need to look at all options on the table to improve that, okay? If you own a business and your business is not successful and you've got competition that's stealing your customers away, then you do one of two things. You improve your business or you go out of business. But here's the problem with education. We can't go out of business. We can't afford to go out of business, and we can't do that to our kids in our community, right? So we need to be the best that we can be because you've got the influence of 50,000 students today that are impacted by what you do and what kind of education you provide. Not only does it impact those kids, it impacts economic development for our community. Do companies want to relocate to Rutherford County? What's one of the first things they look at? What are your schools? How am I going to educate my kids? If I move my company there, how am I going to educate my kids? That's one of the biggest things we look at when we look at economic development, is it not? So I think it's such a critical issue. And I feel privileged to be up here to talk about being on school board. I'm going to stop there because I know you guys probably have questions. I know you've got some other folks that want to come up here and talk, and I could go on and on.
So let me clarify, are you for or against vouchers?
Well, I think if a school is not performing, then we need to have charter schools. And vouchers. Here's the thing. When you start looking at those things, I know that when you look in Nashville, the governor's office is in favor of charter schools right now, right? And so here's the deal. If somebody makes an application to the Rutherford County school system and wants to start a charter school, they come before the board and they present their application, and the board can recommend or deny, right? And they get two chances at that. If they get denied 2 times, then they go to the State Board of Education. And the State Board of Education can then overrule that board and can deem that a necessary thing. And so I think we need to be aware, are we competitive enough to be able to stand against charter schools? Are we competitive enough to be against vouchers? I'm not opposed to competition. I think competition as a business person makes me better. But it also adds a certain level of stress, and I understand why that's stressful to people. But there's nothing more important than how we educate our kids. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I will start with one. One of the things that County Commission and the school board, we have, and I don't want to say the word friction, but is concern, is that the school board will say that they're going to give a certain amount of raise. And then when it comes budget time, we're unable to back that, and then we're all of a sudden we are the bad guys. So my question to you is this: should a school board have tax authority and be able to raise taxes if they want to?
I think taking care of teachers is important, right? It's important to being able to have successful schools. But I think we have to all be physically responsible, right? The buck doesn't just, I guess the buck stops at some point with commission, but you can't have a school board that's making promises that they can't carry, right? And I could see where the conflict would be for you all if you've got a school board that's making promises that the budgets can't deliver on. So I think that's why we have to work together, and we have to understand what's reasonable. We can't make promises and expect you all to go back to the citizens and raise taxes. I don't think that's fair. I think that's something that we have to work together on.
All right. That's me. Let's get to the other ones. Commissioner Cush, Commissioner Reed.
Oh, sorry, y'all got
Here.
questions.
Yeah, we have questions.
Keep going, I'm good.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bradley.
Yes, sir.
I have a few questions. I can spread them out or whatever the chairman's wishes are. What is your stance on parental involvement in the school system?
You know, I think it's critically important. I think it's critically important because I go to my kid's school and I sit in, and if my child is suffering in mathematics, let's say, and I go in and I understand how they're being taught in class and I understand what's going on, it's important, right? It's important for parents. Studies have shown that parents that are more involved in their kids' education, their kids do better in school, right? I think it's critically important.
May I continue, or do you want to spread it around?
Go ahead.
Okay. What do you, I mean, you hit some highlights already with your opening statement, but what do you think as a school board member, what your true responsibilities are?
Well, I think the first responsibility is taking care of the kids first, right? And that's a very broad statement, and I think anybody can say that, right? So what does that mean? I think it can be as overarching as maintaining a budget and make sure we take care of our teachers. But I think it's also not getting lost in the weeds. Sometimes we get lost in the weeds and we forget that what our main focus is. And I think, you know, one of the biggest things, and every board that I've ever served on, for the most part, their responsibility is to govern the director position, right? That director reports to that board. And I think it's making sure that that we have a good relationship with that director, but that director reports to that board. And that's the way most boards are set up, and I imagine that's the way the school board is set up.
That leads me to another question. So, do you have any current relationship with the current director of schools?
I have no relationship with the school, and I say that in a very positive way, because I go in completely neutral, and my kids go to PCA. I don't have kids in the school district, and I know some people say, well, that's I have a problem with that. You know, you're not engaged. And I think it's positive because I have no agenda going into this. I'm not, you know, our family, and after we pursued the charter school route, we ended up starting a private school. The charter school route didn't work for us at that time. And so we ended up opening a private school in 2013. And I've served on that board since 2013. And, you know, we've had a lot of issues with parents being on our board. As a matter of fact, now we have a 12-person board. We have 2 parents out of the 12 that are on the board. I think it is important to have some parent involvement on the board. But it also is a conflict of interest at times. And we've seen that. We've seen that in classrooms and things of that nature. And so, you know, I feel like when you don't have any agenda, that's the purest way to approach a political situation, right? When you come with your own experiences, when you come with in this case, the children's best interest in mind, understanding that you have to be physically responsible and do the right thing for the kids, to understand the impact that it has on our community in a host of ways, I think that's the most important.
So is no agenda also another way of saying fresh eyes?
Yeah, absolutely.
And perhaps autonomy?
Absolutely.
Able to push back? And really be an independent thinker.
Yeah, you know, in my day job, I'm a real estate developer, and I develop properties. We go all the way from Raleigh, North Carolina, to Orlando, Florida, to Dallas, Texas, right? And most of these projects that we develop, we have equity partners that come in that some of these are institutional investors. And one of the big questions that I always get asked by these institutional investors is, as we're looking at this community that we're going to make an investment in, how are the schools in that community? And that dictates their investment in the community, the outside investment into the community. And so I see from a business person standpoint the value of having a good school system in our community. That's how people make investments in your community, and that's critical to the future, and the opportunity for your community is a positive school system.
Good. Commissioner Reed?
Mr. Bradley, I know you serve on the board for Middle Tennessee Electorate.
Yes, sir.
I've been a member of Middle Tennessee Electorate for, I don't know, 20 some odd years or whatever, but my family's been there longer than that. In fact, my grandfather sold memberships to get people to even electricity, but that has nothing to do with you being on the school board, but yet it does. In my district out there, I have 4 schools. One of them's quite unique. It's grades 1 through 12. Not another one in the county. Then I have a high school out there with 2,500 students in it. Right now, the newest high school that we have. And then I have an elementary where my grandchildren go. And then I have a middle school that we're having to add on to because of growth out there in that area. But I mentioned Middle Tennessee Electorate. As you mentioned a while ago, you have fresh eyes coming in because you don't have any children in the school system. Well, I'm an avid supporter of Middle Tennessee Electorate because I have your service and I know exactly what y'all do and how you do it, and I'm all the time sitting there watching how you serve people, and I'm putting it out on my commissioner's page about, hey, when we've had a storm, you know, they're out so many outages and all this sort of thing, but they're going to get to you real fast, and then I tell them all these different things, and I'm doing that. I have grandchildren that's located in that elementary school. You know, I see what you're saying there, but I'm also seeing that within the schools, I sort of like the idea of somebody knows what's happening in that school too. Because in the 4 schools I have out there, I'm a commissioner, I'm a grandfather, but I'm also a commissioner that also visits those schools all the time. I'm involved in those 4 schools' programs, and I see what they do there. And if I'm not involved in those schools, I don't know anything in the world about them. And I think that's quite important within there. You're looking at an individual that's still living on the same road he was born on. So I think it's vital with, I think, some of the success we've seen in the education system here in Rutherford County that we've had within our board. We've had a lot of people dedicated to that system. And that's what I'm looking at and what I'm thinking about. And I just think that's important, that, you know, that we are that way. And I hear what you're saying. I know what you're saying there. But the public school system is something that I think it's dear to me. It's very important to me. I had 2 children that I had to make a decision whether or not they went to a Christian school or go to the public schools. Their mother and I sat down and we prayed over that and whatever, but we decided we wanted them to go to the public schools because we saw it as important to us to do so. And I think for us it turned out real well because they're 2 good citizens here in this county that have children, like I said. But you answered the question of what I was needing. I think it's already come out of there and whatever, and I appreciate your interest, involvement in what you're wanting to do here. So some of my questions were answered with my fellow commissioner here, so appreciate you making application.
You're welcome. If I could touch on that for just a second. You know, I've had a lot of people ask, why run for this position, or apply for this position, excuse me, if your kids don't go there? And you touched on one of the decision points. Probably the most important thing for us is that we did want to have our kids in a Christian school. We thought that was important for our family. I don't think that's the reason most people educate their kids. All right, the school that we have, the private school that we have in East Tennessee is not a Christian school. It's a STEM academy. We do some amazing things through that school, and those kids get educational opportunities that, quite frankly, when my kids were out during COVID, my kids didn't like me too much because they had to stream and do the whole virtual class at that school while they were also doing their education at PCA. But the second reason, and maybe just as important to some degree, was there were certain services that they couldn't get in the city or county school systems that they could get at PCA. So some additional instruction time that they were able to get at PCA that they weren't able to get in schools. And that has been a factor for us as well.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Bradley.
Thank you.
Mr. Holden.
Opportunity to be here before you and discuss the school board open position that we have. Would you
Speaking
like
to the
me
microphone, sir.
I'm sorry. Would you like me to just, what do you want me to do first?
Just introduce yourself.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about you, and then we'll
All right.
open it up to questions. And pretty much what we asked already is what we'll ask again.
Okay, well, I didn't get an agenda from Rachel this time. I don't know what happened, but I didn't see the questions, and that may have been okay. So, but anyways, my name's Tim Holden. I live at 5588 Johnson Road in Buchanan area. I've been a resident of that area for 40 years. My wife and I will be married 40 years next year, and we've always lived in this area. So we do have a lot of folks in that area. My daughter attended Buchanan Middle School. We were very, very active in that. We always supported the school, whether it was a fall festival, whatever. Not so much fun stuff, to be honest with you. A lot of work, just to be honest with you. So she graduated from there, went on to Blackman High School, and graduated from Blackman High School. So that's kind of who we are. Like I said, I have lived in that area for 40 years. And I actually run for that position a few years ago. And that's when Miss Blankenship won the election. And she beat me by 52 votes. So I was kind of proud of the stand we showed. I really was. We're not real politicians. We just try to be good folks and do the right thing. And my background is mostly industrial, engineering, maintenance, budgeting, as Mr. Said before. I did a lot of budgeting through the years, and equipment improvements, and purchasing equipment, and buying equipment. So I do understand budgeting processes and how accountable we need to be right now with budgeting. It's very important. As he said, we got nearly 50,000 students. I couldn't believe that the other day when I read that. I think my high school class in 1978 at Riverdale was 1,200. So now we got 50,000 students. But the Rutherford County school system is a testament for this group, the county commission, and the school board, because that's why people don't feel bad about coming here. They actually very proud of our education system. Now, there's bumps in the road. There always is bumps in the road, but you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. You just kind of work through the bumps, and you negotiate, and you work through those. And as far as critical race theory, I could never sign on to a legislation that picks winners and losers because of the color of your skin. I'll just say that now. I'm sorry. That's not the way I was taught in school. That's not the way we were in school. And I would not support that at this time. Like I said, I've got grandchildren now in the school system. I've got one grandson at Central Magnet School. Phenomenal school. He loves it. He's being challenged. He's learning a lot. He loves it. My other grandson is still at the Siegel Elementary, which is a city school. But they are still in this county in public school. And we've tried to support them as well. So, did I mention that I'd already run for this position? I think I did, yeah. I got beat by 52 votes. So, I was a little devastated, but I felt good about it, actually. So, but anyways, anybody got any more questions or concerns?
Sure. I'll go ahead and reiterate my two. Number one is, are you for or against vouchers? And number two is, do you feel that the school board should have tax authority?
Have what authority?
Taxing authority. They have the ability to raise taxes.
Oh, I think probably not. I think probably we need to stay with the county commission because you got a lot of people looking different eyes at it. Now, of course, I hadn't been around it that much either. My mind might change. But I think this county commission is the one that really spends the money. But I think we as individuals on the school board have got to work really hard with you guys. We can't, that's the point of being there, is we've got to come up with some common ground and work really hard with you guys to make you happy with us and allow you to meet our needs. And what was the other question? I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
School vouchers.
School vouchers. I'm not going to say I'm totally opposed to school vouchers. In some situations I might be. I have not dug into that legislation. My wife works for Murfreesboro City Schools, so I hear a little bit of that from them. But whatever we do, we don't want to handicap our current system. We want to give children the most opportunity we can give them to be successful in life, create a skill they can use. I'm a huge advocate of vocational technical. I was a machinist by trade. Then I ended up being a manufacturing engineer for 17 years at Molly, and machinist, you know. So I'm a huge fan of career and technical. I think we have a lot of young people that are falling through the cracks. And I don't know whether I can stand up here and say why, but we've got to make these children a way to make a living. Or we're just going to continue to create people that don't have the money or the time or the skill to do that. I'm a huge fan of career and technical, and I think that's an opportunity we could have. It's not for everybody, nor is college for everybody. There's nothing wrong with college if you're the guy to go to college. But career and technical is a huge opportunity we have. And I know the field is just, I'm sure if you're a contractor, you'd probably take a couple of contractor guys right now, home builders or something. I work for a company now, we hire 5 machinists if we can find them. And I'm talking about these folks are making $40,000, $50,000 a year. I mean, it's not sneeze at your money. So some way we've got to educate these young people on the opportunities out there and help them do it. So.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Holden. From your application, and you just mentioned that your background and love is the machinist side.
Yes, sir.
It shows here that you were involved in the mechatronics at Oakland High School, and it says with Mr. Spurlock, and that you served on the Rutherford County School Board Policy Committee. So tell me a little bit about your relationship with Director Spurlock.
We were a group of people called the Manufacturing Leadership Council. Jimmy Davis, you may know Jimmy or not, but some of those guys and other people from industry. Now, we had leadership in that group that dealt more with Mr. Spurlock than I did. So I really was not that dealing with him that directly. We had leadership within that group that dealt with him, but we did propose money and, you know, come up with suggestions, and we're able to get the mechatronics program in, which I think has been a great success.
So I guess I think what you've said is your relationship with Director Spurlock is minimal.
Oh, it's acquaintance, hi, how you doing when I see you kind of thing.
Okay.
It's really not a friendship, I'll call it.
Right. So
same with Brian Lewis. He's another gentleman out there at the school board.
Okay.
He had a lot to do with CTE. He's occasional, hi, how you doing at Toots, you know.
So tell me about how you would conduct yourself with the school board and with Spurlock as director. Can you work independently, think freely, you not I mean, I'm not looking for a yes man
Yeah.
for Spurlock. I want somebody that has their own ideas, can solve their own problems, and able to go toe-to-toe
Well, I
with the
think I owe
director if
that
need-
to my people in my zone, to be a free thinker and just say, hey, I don't like that. Now, can we get somewhere between here and here? You might can, but I don't have a problem with saying, I don't like that idea. And my zone out there is pretty much conservative people, really. They're very conservative people, and they're good people. But I want to represent my zone in our school system to the best of my abilities.
What's your thoughts on the parental involvement in the school
Parental
system?
involvement is paramount. We were there all the time. I think when we did it, I was, good gracious, athletic director or whatever, athletic guy and the PTA guy, and we put on all kinds of stuff. And it really helps. And it does two things. I think it helps the school, but it also helps build your relationship with those people in that school. It seems very polarizing right now, just to be honest with you, a little bit polarizing. I went to the last school board meeting, and I was sitting there, and of course you had the group that didn't like masks and the group that liked masks. But you know what happened? They introduced a group from Oakland High School that made some honor society. Everybody stood up and clapped. I'm like, dude, freeze this thought. This is what it's really all about. This is an elected position, but to me it's more of a public service opportunity, just to be honest with you. Serving the people, making the schools better is kind of how I look at it.
Well, so how would you propose to make those schools better? What do you think the board's responsibilities truly are?
I think the board's responsibility is to be over the school system and work together with the director, because he does work for the school board. And you've got to work with him, and you've got to work through problems. You can't just put your foot down and say, I ain't budging. Well, ain't nobody gonna budge. Ain't nobody gonna make it there. Every job I've ever had, we had to have a little give and take. And I think that's very important to do that. So.
Mr. Holden, today, this week, the Tennessee General Legislation is passing a law to where school board members had to represent or tell who they represent, which would be Republican, Democrat, Independent, or other.
Oh.
So my two questions are to you is, number one, what party do you affiliate yourself with? And number two, if you're given this position, will you run for re-election when the elections come up?
First of all, I don't agree with that, but they didn't ask me to agree with it or not. So they asked me to choose. I think that position there is a public service commission. I am more aligned with Republicans and conservatives than I would be liberals or Democrats maybe. And I will seek re-election if I do get appointed to this. So, like I said, I had a real heart for this. Like I said, I ran really hard a few years ago. And of course, Miss Blankenship, she had a lot of power in the school systems. Her mother was a union president. And for me to even do as well as I did, I was pretty excited. I think I had a lot of people connect with me. So.
Thank you. Any questions? We're good? Thank you, sir.
Thank you once again for your time. I appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Mr. Marable. Mr. Marable here. Okay. Mr. Whitaker. Is there a Mr. Whitaker here? All right. Since there is no other one. That's it. Whitaker's not here, and Mr. Marable is not here. Gentlemen, here's how it's going to work. We have 4 applicants. We're going to vote 3, 2, 1. All right, I know that sounds a lot, but this is where we got to get it down to that. We're going to do a roll count, and right now we're voting for 3. They are Tim Holden, Christopher Whitaker, Ross Bradley, and Jatrone Marable. So, go ahead, Rachel.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Chairman, are these in any particular order, or are these just 3 that will then move on to the next round?
It will move on to the next one.
Okay.
Pick 3.
Bradley, Holden, and Marable. Commissioner Reed,
Bradley, Holden, Marable.
Bradley, Holden, Marable. Commissioner Stevens,
Bradley, Holden, and Marable.
Commissioner Rather,
Holden, Bradley, Marable.
Holden, Bradley, Marable. Commissioner Cush,
Bradley, Holden, and Whitaker.
Commissioner Johnson,
Bradley, Holden, Whitaker.
Chairman Harris.
Bradley, Holden, and Whitaker.
Looks like we have a tie, don't we? Let's say, hang on, Marable, Bradley.
No, it should be 4 for Marable.
Yeah, 4. 1, 2, 3. 4 for Marable, 3 for Whitaker. Bradley, Holden, Marable are your 3.
All right, gentlemen, now we're voting for 2.
Commissioner Reed,
Bradley and Holden.
Commissioner Johnson,
Bradley, Holden.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Stevens,
Bradley and Holden.
Commissioner Cush,
Bradley, Holden.
Commissioner Rather,
Bradley, Holden.
Commissioner Harris.
Bradley, Holden. All right,
Bradley and Holden.
this is, we're 1 for 1 now. Between Tim Holden and Ross Bradley.
Commissioner Stevens,
Holden.
Commissioner McAdoo, Commissioner Cush,
As being a commissioner in District 7, as this school board member is part of my district, my vote goes to Bradley.
Commissioner Rather,
Holden.
Commissioner Reed,
Holden.
Commissioner Johnson,
Holden.
Chairman Harris.
Holden.
Mr. Holden.
Mr. Holden, it is with the recommendation of the steering board that your name will be brought up before the full commission, and congratulations. Mr. Bradley, I'd like to say that I found you very sharp. I thank you for replying, and I also want to remind you that any commissioner can bring your name up before the full commission to be considered in the full commission. So do you understand? Okay? I want to thank you. I want to thank all y'all. I want to thank both y'all. I thought it was two well candidates, and I feel like Rutherford County will be represented well. Any other questions? Mr. Reed?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to say thank you to both of these candidates. I just want to say both of you were two refreshing candidates that have come before us, and that your dedication to do this. I know that the education field right now are tough situations, and I just appreciate you putting your name out there for us, and look forward to you serving in other. I know, Mr. Bradley, that it didn't come to you, but I'm looking forward to you to serve at other times. But thank you.
Thank you. All right, Jen, let's move on to any other business. Seeing none, this committee is adjourned.